Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our presentation tonight. My name is Rabbi Shneur SIlbereberg, coming to you live from the Hagman Beis Chabad Torah Center in West Bloomfield, and I am excited to have a conversation and a discussion with a good friend and a very unique individual, Dimitry Salita, also as I know him as David, and as the title of the event is The Rabbi and The Boxer, in which we'll share a discussion connected to Dmitry's career as a boxer, with the discussion about Torah values, and we're going to include different video clips from Dmitry's documentary, which was put out about Dimitry called ORTHODOX Stance. So we'll share some videos from there and bring it all together. I'm going to let a video introduce Dmitry, but I'll just share just very briefly. Dmitry was a professional fighter from his teenage years, and his record eventually was 35-2, started at 29-0, which, as I told Dmitry just a few moments ago, happens to be the identical record that my wife has against me. But this was his professional record, and afterwards, Dmitry now has continued his career in the realm of boxing, although he no longer boxes. Is that correct? No longer in the ring.
Yes.
And is a member of our Chabad community here in West Bloomfield. I'd always been afraid, theoretically, the idea of getting into the ring with a boxer would certainly frighten me, although nowadays maybe it would be easier because I can get into the ring, and as long as social distance is kept, I could probably stay alive for a little while. All right. So without further ado, we'd like to begin with a video in which we'll introduce a little bit about Dimitry and his story.
In less than a month, Dimitry Salita will fight in Madison Square Garden. Salita was born in Ukraine. Now he lives in Brooklyn, where he's part of the ultra-religious Chabad movement.
Brooklyn boys are back, baby. Taking over.
There's no contradiction between boxing and Judaism, because I've been around it since I'm a little kid. I've been around it before I've been around the synagogue. This yarmulke that you see me wearing it publicly is very recent. I used to always wear a hat to the press conferences, interviews. It's important for me to show Jewish pride and Jewish presence. This is definitely a special place. Recently, I've started to completely digest how unusual it is, but I think that it serves a lot of good in people seeing someone like me that don't necessarily look stereotypically in the norm of what you would perceive a religious Jewish person to be. I try to do the best that I can with boxing. I'm 28-0. I'm ranked number 3 in the world. And, God willing, I'm a fight away from fighting for the world title.
All right.
It brings back great memories.
So the topic of a battle and the fighting in the ring, I think, is always fascinating and certainly connects to life. Perhaps now more than ever, as we are really in a worldwide battle against a virus, and we use the battle loosely, to the term battle loosely, but right now we're battling, as an entire world. It's really unusual when the entire world is all facing the same enemy and not facing each other, which I guess is a nice thing. But we're going to share. I'd like to hear from you several ideas. I know we prepared together, Dimitry. We prepared maybe 3 or 4 topics. Maybe in boxing terms, we'll go 3 or 4 rounds, unless there's a knockout punch. But the topic we will start with is the topic of Shabbos, which played a very prominent role in your career. And again, as the theme of this presentation, I'd like to share a somewhat of a rabbinic perspective of Shabbos, and then hear your perspective. Again, we'll also share a video on the topic of Shabbos. So when it comes to Shabbos, there's perhaps the most famous quote or contemporary quote about Shabbos is that more than the Jews have guarded or kept the Shabbos, Shabbos has kept the Jews. This is a contemporary from a Chad Ha'am, a poet. And while there's a lot of truth to that, I think there's something deeper than that as well. And that is that implies that Shabbos keeps the Jew. It keeps us aligned with our Judaism. But perhaps on a deeper level, Shabbos doesn't just keep the Jew. Shabbos has the ability to bring the Jew back. It doesn't just preserve our Judaism, it brings us back to our Judaism. So many beautiful stories in which it was the mitzvah of Shabbos which triggered a Jew on his journey to return to their faith. And in fact, this is alluded to even in the word Shabbos. The Hebrew word Shabbos, which is Shin, Beis, and Taf, is the same letters as the word Tashev, which means to return. Tshuva, which means to return, shares the same root as the word Shabbos. Same letters. So Shabbos really has the ability not just to protect the Jews or keep the Jews, but to bring a Jew back. But in your case, that is always the case, even though Shabbos is just one of many commandments, Shabbos, I believe, perhaps more than any other mitzvah, embodies the concept of Jewish self-sacrifice. That Jews sacrifice themselves for Shabbos, sacrifice their career, sacrifice their wealth, sacrifice their well-being for Shabbos. That existed for Jews in Russia, exists for Jews in America, certainly 50, 60 years ago. For a Jew to observe Shabbos very often meant great sacrifices in their career. In fact, and with this I'll conclude and give it over to you, this coming Shabbos is the 12th of Tammuz, which is a special day in the Chabad calendar. We celebrate the redemption from prison of the previous Lubavitch Rebbe, who was put into prison for his work in communist Russia spreading Judaism. And one detail within the story, it's a fascinating story, but one detail is that at one point he was told, and it was on Shabbos, he says, now you are free to leave prison. You can leave, you can go home, or you can move on to a lighter sentence. But he said, today's Shabbos, I'm not going anywhere. So they said to him, if you don't leave now, you're going to remain in prison. And he said, okay, but today is Shabbos, and I'm not going anywhere on Shabbos. So perhaps I know you have roots in the Soviet Union, so maybe it was the spirit of the previous Rebbe who inspired you in your journey. And as the video now will show, and then we'll have you share your story, the significance of Shabbos and the sacrifice you had to make in your career in connection to Shabbos. And with this, we'll go to the next film.
Gentlemen, welcome to Las Vegas Martinez International Airport. Local time here is approximately 10:14.
Well, everybody's looking forward to Saturday night. We had a fight that was going to go on after the main event because the young man is a very observant Orthodox Jewish fighter, and he can't fight until after the Sabbath is over, which is at sundown. And the rabbi said, no problem, the Sabbath, because it's winter, ends at 5:15. We're really delighted we can accommodate him. Please welcome Dmitry Salita.
I just want to thank Top Rank and Mr. Barbaram for giving me this great opportunity. I had a very good training camp, and I'm actually very excited. It's going to be my first televised fight, and I'm looking forward to Saturday night. Counting the hours, counting the days, and I'm looking forward to putting on a great performance. Thank you very much, and I'll see you on Saturday. The Lord is King, the Lord's wars, King, the Lord shall be King forever and ever. The Lord reigns for all eternity, the nations have vanished from his land. The Lord has annulled the counsel of nations, he has foiled the schemes of people, men in the thoughts of the heart of men. Shema Israel, Eloheinu Adonai Echad. See, I'm an immigrant, I come from Russia. So back in the 1920s and 1930s, the #1 ethnic group in boxing were the Jews. Right. Barney Rose, Benny Leonard, and a whole bunch of other guys. So, they were immigrants and they were trying to fight their way to the top. So I guess maybe there's some similarities there. And I'm just trying to make it, man.
And we're very excited that he's making his debut on pay-per-view like this, HBO pay-per-view. Also an Associated Press writer is coming down to meet him now, and very soon we expect, or we hope, that an Associated Press story will go throughout the world on our boy Dimitry.
The Chabad rabbi here is named Shayaholic. He comes into the office one day and he says, I have a fighter for you. I said, Rabbi, not you too. He says, yeah, there's this Jewish boy in Brooklyn, and he's in the amateurs, and he would love you to call him. Remember I called you?
Yes.
Right, yeah. And then he won the Golden Gloves in New York, but he was going to go to a world tournament. And even though the tournament here in the United States, when he fought in it, they accommodated the religion to moving his weight division to Saturday night rather than Friday night. You know, with the Hungarians, they ain't gonna do that shit for a Jew. You know?
The world tournament was in Budapest.
So yeah, it was in Budapest. Yeah. So they wouldn't do it. So at that point, he became disgusted and said he wanted to turn pro.
The fact is that Top Rank has been really working great with the schedule and still managed, as you see, to put me on big cards, even though, they have the schedule.
Well, it helps. Papa is Jewish.
Yes.
Really, because I was raised in an Orthodox family, so I understand this stuff. It's not like I come, for somebody who has...
You were raised Orthodox.
Yeah, so somebody who, doesn't have the background, it becomes very, very difficult to deal with. Not that they don't want to deal with it, it's hard to figure out, but I know all the rules. Not that I follow them, but I know all the rules.
Fish and horseradish here in Vegas. The hot food for tonight. I don't have like a hot platter that can keep it on, so it's pretty hot. She delivers it very hot. You just wrap it up in a blanket and a pillow. It stays warm until tonight. Using some of Dmitry's boxing tape. Now we don't need to use the key, which works electronically, which like I do on Shabbos. Just tape it around the door.
All right. Wow. Okay. So they should advertise, by the way, for the boxing tape when they want to sell it, that it doubles as a Shabbos observant hotel room assistant. But Dimitry, I'm going to hand it over to you if you don't mind sharing. I know the focus of that video was Shabbos, but maybe share in general, what was it that inspired you and brought you to Judaism and to Jewish observance?
Great memories. It's a great honor to be part of this broadcast and good to share this experience with you, Rabbi Shneur. The Lord works in strange ways, as my trainer Jimmy used to say. And I want to tell you a little bit about the beginning stages of my journey, and then tell you how big a role Shabbos played in it. So when I was 14 years old, my mother was not well. She was sick, and she was in a hospital, in Sloan Kettering Hospital in the city. She shared a room with an Orthodox religious lady, and one day I came to visit my mother, and the lady's husband came to visit his wife. So we spent several hours together. I never shared such intimate space with an Orthodox Jewish person before. He was a very nice, warm man. I had a lot of questions about Judaism, about God, all sorts of stuff. And he took my information and he gave it to Mrs. Schusterman, who was a lady in Crown Heights that did a lot of outreach work. And she contacted my mother, and then she gave my number to Rabbi SIlbereberg, who was from Chabad of Flatbush, which was around the corner from where I lived. And, to be quite honest, my previous experiences with Orthodox Judaism, actually, I didn't really even know that there were different kinds, different ways that people observe Judaism. But it didn't really spark me. And I felt a little uncomfortable about Rabbi Zalman's requests and calls about having me come to the synagogue. But one day I decided that I would come to the synagogue and see what it was like. And I came during the week. There were people there that were looked like they were more observant, and some folks that look, in kind of in more secular clothes. But there was some type of harmony, some type of respect and understanding that resonated with me, and it made me feel good and empowered me. It empowered me to, even that one visit, to deal with my challenges with my mother, and also it gave me strength and strength to gave me more focus in my journey in the boxing, in the boxing ring and in the boxing gym. And I decided that I would come back. So very slowly, I started to come back. Rabbi Zalman gave me a pair of tefillin. He saw me put on the film. And I started to take upon myself little things to do, very steady but gradual ascent. And I was started winning many boxing tournaments. And so in amateur boxing, when you turn 17, you're considered an adult. So I was a pretty well-accomplished junior boxer, and I was becoming an adult. I was getting ready to compete in the New York City Golden Gloves, which was a very big tournament. And each year, Fox 5 picked the boxer they followed through that tournament. And that particular year, they picked me. So I was very excited. It was my last year in high school. So my goal was to win and to turn pro. So every time I would fight on Sunday night in prime time, there would be in a sports broadcast, there'd be 5 minutes dedicated to my fight, and really awesome. So and I remember I used to go to these fights. I had these teachers from Rabbi Zalman, Mashiach is coming. So different people in high school would ask me what it was about. Anyway, but I made it to the finals, and I was fighting somebody that was a very good fighter. The finals were on Friday night in Madison Square Garden, and I lost a very close fight. So while I felt a little bit uncomfortable about fighting on Friday night, I just said to myself, tomorrow morning I'm going to go to the synagogue and stay a little extra. I still didn't consider myself Shabbos observant, So, but after I lost, it really challenged me because, I either had to. My plan was to turn pro, and the Golden Gloves would give me a platform to be able to sign with a good promoter like Bob Arum, to have financial backing of being able to train and progress. And plan B was to go to college and to go to school, and and wouldn't really give me the opportunity to train and dedicate myself to boxing like I wanted to. The guy that beat me, his name was Raymond Biggs. For some reason, he couldn't make it to the nationals, and I got a call a couple of months before this tournament. Said, Dimitry, you're going to go to Gulfport, Mississippi, represent New York. I got very excited, and I trained very hard to get myself in the best shape. And for those of you that watch Rocky before his big fights, he used to run by his priest to get a blessing before his big fights. But I used to come to Rabbi Zalman Lieberov, and Rabbi Zalman, I said, Rabbi Zalman, I'm going to the very important tournament in Gulfport, Mississippi. I need your blessing that I should win. He said, Dimitry, you always have my blessing, but I suggest that you write a letter to the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And I was very tuned into what Rabbi Zalman was saying. He's someone with whom I respected and respect tremendously. And with full of faith, I poured out my desires on a piece of paper. Rabbi Zalman took me to this shelf. This was in 1998 or 1999. The Chabad house has been redone since then. Anyway, there was loads of books. He said, take out a book, open up a page, and that's what I did. He opened a book, and the answer was to a teacher, and it said that you'll be successful in what you do and will have influence over many people, but do your job according to Torah and mitzvahs. And Rabbi Zalman said, for you, this means that you should not box on Shabbos anymore. I said, well, Rabbi, that's a big request. But he said, I guarantee you that only good is going to come out of this. And, after some moments of discussion with him, I felt that it was going to be the right thing to do, and I felt that I would take this upon myself. So I got to Gulfport, Mississippi, and I told USA Boxing that I wouldn't be able to box on Saturday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and they said, "Well, if you don't, then you're going to be disqualified." But I had a lot of very talented boxers in my tournament, in my weight class, and I felt like, let me take it one step at a time, and when I get there, I'll deal with it. So I made it to the semifinals. I fought Keith Mason, who was a very accomplished boxer, and I beat him. And I was interviewed by Dylan Hernandez, who was one of the local reporters. He now works for the LA Times. And he said, "Dimitry, what a great upset. We never heard of you. What can we expect to see from you in the finals?" I said, I won't be able to box because I'm an observant Jew, and 2 o'clock in the afternoon is the Sabbath for me. And USA Boxing told me that I would be disqualified. So I said, let me see what I could do. He spoke with USA Boxing, and they changed the time for me and scheduled it for after Shabbos. And I remember that morning, Saturday morning, I had to come to fill out some paperwork. And, I showed up, get examined by the doctor. And the lady said, "You have to sign here and you have to check this box and that box." I said, "I'm sorry, it's the Sabbath. I can't do it." She said, "Oh, really? You can't do that either?" And the boxing trainers, not from New York City, from different people that I never met before, whoever, heard about my experience, said, "Man, don't apologize to her. Stay strong for your beliefs, man. You're doing a great thing." Anyway, so, after those challenges, I was in the finals, and I fought a very good and accomplished boxer, and thank God I won. And then I was invited to go to Budapest, Hungary, for the World Championships, which Bob Ram referenced in that video, but they wouldn't change my time, so I stayed home. But the next year, I entered into the Golden Gloves, and Jimmy O'Farrell, who was my trainer, someone who was very close to me, worked for the Daily News, and through his pushing and through his lobbying, they changed my fight from Friday night to Thursday night, and I won. And I also got the Shneur Robinson Award as the MVP, the outstanding fighter of the tournament in any weight class. So that was, really a sign for myself from above that what I did was the right thing, and really, one of the happiest moments of my career, because it was so much, not only challenging in the ring, but obviously there's so many challenges outside of it. And then I signed a professional contract, and in my contract there was a clause that I don't box on Shabbos or Jewish holidays. And Bob Arum, Top Rank, was my first promoter. And there was a lot of interest, a lot of novelty to the fact that I had so many amateur accomplishments and was, highly respected fighter, and also the Jewish observant angle. So a lot of publicity, a lot of that usually fighters at that stage of their career don't really get. So I had a lot of excitement. Had some, as my career started to progress, had some pushback because there's a lot of people. Some of them were Jewish in the entertainment industry. Didn't feel comfortable with me being so proactively, not only culturally, but really, talking about values and Shabbos and different things in a very, in a very non-excusable way. So, as a young man, it really gave me a chance to grow up and to experience a lot of these things that I normally wouldn't have experienced. So I believe that was the fight in the video. I finally got a chance to fight on television. And I was fighting on television like 10, 15 minutes after Shabbos was over. So we were staying at a hotel. The arena's downstairs. We come downstairs. Part of the boxing process is that you get your hands wrapped. And that usually takes 30 minutes. But we rushed it. Jimmy O was screaming, "Dimitry, you gotta warm up. There's no way you go in the ring without warming up." And television, if you have to be in the ring at 9:45, World War III can start. You have to be in the ring at 9:45. So the lady, the TV lady, her name is Tammy, came into our locker room, said, 3 minutes, you're up. And Jimmy's screaming at me, "Dimitry, you have to warm up. You have to warm up." And the end of Saturday night, we got to do Havdalah, and there were not enough people. So Israel hands Jimmy the Havdalah candle, and Jimmy's like, he doesn't know what's going on. He holds the candle, he's fuming. Make the blessing, and then we get rushed and pushed into the to walk into the ring, and I'm dry as a bone. My first fight on television, and Jimmy's so nervous. I'm nervous myself. So I used the first round just to kind of warm myself up, stay out of harm's way. And the second round, I just score a spectacular knockout, like the best of my career, and everybody's so excited. And we come back to the locker room, and Jimmy says, whatever you guys do with the candle, man, let's do it every time. So the following fight,
the secret to a good boxer is having a good Havdalah beforehand.
So next time on a Thursday, Jimmy took out the candle. We told him it only works on Saturday.
That is great. Beautiful. I love that. That's a beautiful illustration of that you stood your ground when it came to Shabbos, and eventually people made things work around you. It doesn't always work that way, but it's really beautiful when it happens. In fact, I think one of the, common denominators between the industry of boxing and the industry of being a rabbi is that both there's an expectation that you're going to work on Shabbos. But
right. It's the hardest day for you.
All right.
But one of the things
go ahead.
that I would say is on my personal life, having lost my mother and really being invited to Rabbi Zalman's house for Shabbos and different people in the community, and seeing that harmonious life, seeing that once a week, whether you're in heaven or hell, whatever happens in your life, you stop, you have a meal with your family, your friends, you talk about things that are important. There's a certain serenity, a certain peace, and you just cannot duplicate it. There's no way to duplicate this experience unless it's a religious experience. And it is the things that you can do that you may want to do that make it so holy and make it so special. And, continuously throughout my career, obviously in the beginning it was challenging, in the beginning to kind of turn down certain opportunities and to go through with it. But as time went on, I was just really, looking forward to it. And it's really, really a special day, and the day that brings it all together. Somehow on Friday night, you just feel a little extra tired, a little extra relaxed. And, so I really felt and feel the blessing of Shabbos, in my life, from those times to now.
Beautiful.
And, the other thing is that I want to bring up is that, my growth in Judaism from the beginning was very gradual. And, when I started to not box on Shabbos, I still would do some things that Orthodox Jewish people wouldn't do. So, one of the things that I used to do is I used to eat at the Mandalay Bay buffet. I wouldn't eat tray, but I wouldn't eat, but I would eat things that are not, neither here nor there, but it wasn't a kosher restaurant. So, reporters would ask me, so you're Orthodox. I say I'm observant, but no one would really, people would just write what they would write. And I, felt that it was important to project that because that's what people felt. And then I found 5 different kosher restaurants in Las Vegas. They were as good as Mandalay Bay.
That's great. So basically, the projection you put out of yourself pushed you to take greater steps in your Jewish observance. That's fascinating. All right, I want to move on to shall we say the second round. So you mentioned already a couple times this person in your life who seemed to be extremely influential, and that was, you described him as Jimmy O. And so I want to focus on an idea, again, a Jewish idea, a Torah idea, and see how it connects also to your career and your industry. In the Jewish book of Pirkei Avos, Jewish Ethics, in chapter 1 of Pirkei Avos, to be precise, chapter 1, Mishnah number 6, we have a statement from the teachings of Rabbi Yehoshua ben Prachia. Yehoshua ben Prachia, he said the following. He says, Yehoshua ben Prachia Omer, Aseh lecha rav uknei lecha chaver, make for yourself a mentor and acquire a friend. Now, I want to focus on this first part for a moment, this idea of making for yourself a mentor. Actually, the words Aseh lecha rav, make for yourself a mentor, are mentioned twice in that same chapter of Pirkei Avos. And the key word is the idea of a mentor. And as the Rebbe used to focus on this idea and demand that every person should have a personal mashpia, which is a mentor. And one may ask, why do you need a mentor in Judaism? After all, we have plenty of books which tell you exactly what to do. And perhaps if you have questions about what it says, you can have a rabbi you can turn to who can answer those questions. So why do you need a mashpia? Why do you need a rav, a mentor who is there for you in life beyond what the books tell you to do? And yet the answer is that even though, yes, we have the Shulchan Aruch which tells you how to lead your life, and we have books even in Hasidic teaching which tell you how to lead your life mystically, but ultimately the answers to the life situations are not necessarily clearly spelled out in the books. They're not necessarily clearly directed for you. And situations come up in which you need someone who understands you, who knows you, and who can give you that personal direction, who loves you and cares for you, who can give you that personal direction with an objective understanding of who you are and direct you in the easy, but certainly the more difficult, challenging decisions and dilemmas you have to face in life. So that's the idea of Asel Harav, beyond knowing the laws and beyond even having someone who can clarify to you the right and the wrong. It's important to have a mentor, a person in life who gives you that direction, which often a book or a law won't provide that clearly. So now I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. But first, let's begin with a portion of the documentary on you, again, from the video Orthodox Stance, video number 2.
Well, how old are you, young fella? Too. Somebody pull down, you put your foot in your face. You know what I'm saying? But up in here, you can't do that because it's against the rules. Okay, so we got good rules and regulations. And sometimes you might have to use them rules and regulations for the rest of your life. Get the jab back out there. Don't look at him. There you go. You don't have to hit him hard. Just throw the jab out there. Touch him. Right there, baby. Oh, you did all right today. And when you went to the body, you went to the body nice.
But in the last round, it's high, so I was just going for the body.
Yeah, I like for you to stay there sometimes when they're coming at you, turn it. Then punch, that's right. And that way you can stay right in front of them, throw the punches at you, and you turn the back, you did miss. You go right down here. Or they'll just hit you on the shoulder.
Being from New York, I was a pretty good amateur in New York. Many times when I fought in the gold gloves in local tournaments, that really prepared me for the future, and the future is now. I'm learning how to be a professional, and everything's coming along.
That brought you, that attracted you to him, that said, this kid, this kid has a positive future in the sport?
Maybe it just came from my own size at that time. I just wanted just to, let's see what he can do. Let's find out. And he turned out right. It just turned out good. He did everything I told him to do. If I told him to bow down, he bowed down. If I told him to stand up straight, he stood up straight. He listened. And that's what it takes to be a good boxer, listening to people. And then God gave him a little bit of talent too to go along with it. The father and mother used to drive Dimitry to the club every day. Then they'd get out and walk around the block. And so when I was at the gym, I walked outside and they were still sitting in the car. She called me over and asked me to, said, Jimmy, come here, I want to speak to you. So I don't know what that sounded. I stood there and I talked with her. How you feeling? An everyday conversation. And she said, look, I want you to do me a favor. I said, yeah, what's that? I want you to take care of my son. I want you to look after my kid.
Well, my mother was first diagnosed with cancer. It was an extremely difficult period of time for my family. And there's always a certain level of hope, but with chemotherapy not doing what it's supposed to do, you understand where it's all heading to.
To lose your mother at that age bracket's tough, right? And he loved his mother dearly. But it happens, and God says it's time to go, it's time to go.
It was just a big shock that we still have not rehabilitated from. And boxing was something that helped me deal with it emotionally in a very big way, because it helped me, block out the pain and give me a purpose. I knew that I was winning, and I knew that it's something that I had that kept me feeling good. But for my mother, it must have been, now that I'm thinking about it, it was very difficult, knowing that her son is doing this crazy sport, and being the situation that she was in, I guess, Jimmy played a very a great role in her level of comfort and safeness with me, I guess.
All right. So, Dimitry, I'd like to hand it over to you. Obviously, the mentor in your career is this Jimmy O, who played clearly a very major role in your life. What would you like for us to share more about that and how that influenced you?
So, at the age of 13, I knew that I wanted to box, that I wanted to try boxing. And I remember that my father and my brother drew me down to Stereo City Boxing Club. Stereo City Boxing Club is in a basement. It's a gym that this was in the summertime, so it has no air conditioning. It was extremely hot. I remember walking down, it was like, there's no stairs, it's a slope. Walking down the slope, saying, how you doing? My name is Dimitry. I'd like to sign up for some boxing. And there was an old gentleman there, his name was Mr. Tate. And he said, come back on Monday and get an application, and we'll figure it out. And I'm coming back up the slope, and Jimmy O was sitting outside. He said, how you doing, young fella? What can I help you with? I said, I want to sign up for the gym. He said, okay, well, let me come back with me. I'm going to give you an application so you can come back on Monday and be ready to train. So I came back on Monday, and there was a process of kind of initiation. And first, this guy, Mr. Tate, who introduced everybody to the boxing, showed them the boxing stance and just kind of the basics. And then Jimmy gave me over to this Russian trainer. His name was Yasha. Jim was the director, so he overlooked. There was many trainers, and all the fighters that we saw in that little short film went on to become world champions and top contenders, Olympians, just incredible talent. So Jimmy would really train only the very few, but he was a director. He would make sure that everything kind of functioned the way it should. So this Russian trainer, Yasha, trained me, and I was still green, and I boxed with these very talented boxers, and in the beginning, I had to take my share of licks and black eyes, but I would come back, and with time, started to do my own, whooping. And Jimmy saw that and started to very kind of casually advise me and kind of mentor me. And then some things happened in the gym, people coming and going. And when I was about 14 and a half, Jimmy really, took over as my head trainer. And, Jimmy with me he really kind of became, as I get older, Jimmy becomes wiser. Jimmy not only trained me in the boxing gym, he also, hours after the gym, he would spend hours on the phone with me talking about philosophy of life and philosophy of boxing and the way people act and what he has to deal with being the boss of this place. He would take me to different gyms throughout the country, throughout different tournaments. When it was too hot in the summer, Jim would buy me an air conditioner, for my room, and really helped guide me in every way. Being an immigrant coming from a different country, being in Stereo City Boxing Club and really being under Jimmy's eye gave me, cultured me and kind of educated me in American culture, and really in my growing up through, with a lot of influence of Jimmy. And Jimmy grew up during segregation, and I remember we used to drive past certain places where he used to fight when he was a kid, and he used to say that I fought here, but I would have to leave from the back because I was, because of my skin color, and really, describe to me the difficulties that he faced. And now, I don't know, 60 years later or 70 years later, here he was really, kind of taking a very close care of someone like me, who comes from a completely different background. That rubbed off on me. Then later when I started to get involved with Chabad, with Rabbi Zalman, and obviously Chabad also being very outspoken, very proud of their Judaism, kind of the two, these two different cultures intertwined in my life. And Jimmy and Rabbi Zalman, actually, formed a very close relationship. Jimmy really encouraged me. And then when, at some point later in my career, when I stopped boxing on Shabbos, Jimmy told me that I knew that it was coming. But he said, and you're going to become more and more observant and more religious. He said, but some of the things that you were able to do and to learn from, you were only able to do it at that period of time in your life, and that are going to suit you. And these experiences are going to teach you and going to educate you and stay with you for the rest of your life. So, these are some of the very important lessons that were taught to me, and some things that I've seen that's, that a white Jewish boy from Flatbush wouldn't really see, So
the idea of hashkacha pratis, of divine providence.
For sure. Definitely you go through different situations in life. Sometimes, so boxing was something that was very dear to me and very serious. Sometimes you have great days, sometimes you have bad days. And, when you have bad days, so to me, when I had a bad day, that was like, it was crushing to me. To be able to talk to somebody, someone to give you encouragement, to understand that bad days is all part of the process, constructively and obviously in details relating to that particular situation, was huge for me. I remember, like Jimmy said in the video, my mother and my father used to drop me off, and they would walk around the block while I would train when I was 14. And then when my mother got sick, she would ask me, like, how is Jimmy doing? How is he taking care of you? And they would, she would call him. And Jimmy really, till the rest, for the rest of his life, he passed away about 7.5 years ago, felt that he had a responsibility to, to look after me and to, to do his role not only as a boxing trainer. I mean, boxing training was just a means of him, showing his love and his care for me. But our relationship meant so much more than that. Throughout my professional career, as Jimmy became older, physically he wasn't able to do some of the things as a trainer, but I always wanted Jimmy in my corner, and he was always with me for all of my fights. Then towards the end of my career, when I started to promote my own shows, Jimmy called me before one of my fights, and he said, Dimitry, I'm not going to come tonight. I said, well, why, Jimmy? He said, because you have to learn how to function on your own. Because I'm not always going to be there for you. I mean, I'm always there for you, but I'm not always physically going to be there for you. And he said, I'm here. Have, whatever you need, you can come after, call me, whatever, but you have to learn how to function by yourself. And it was really awkward for me to be in a locker room. And a locker room is the most intense period of time before a fight. And, looking around, looking for some safety and some comfort, not being able to see someone who's been there since you're a little kid, So that was quite something. And then, when I had the ability to get invited to meet President Bush for my Hanukkah party, I made sure that Jimmy O was my guest, and it was a big deal for him, and it was a big deal for me. And Jimmy was a tremendous blessing. And some of the experiences that I encounter in my life now, I said, man, Jimmy spoke about this 23 years ago.
Beautiful. All right, beautiful. And we're running low on time. I want to share. Let's see if we can squeeze in two quick topics and keep it to about an hour. So, and everything you said really aligns itself with the Jewish value of a mentor in the battle of life, to have that person you can turn to for guidance, and then to learn to walk on your own. Okay, but now let's move on to perhaps the essence of what you did and how that can be applied to Jewish life. And that is the idea of fighting in the ring, the idea of fighting in the battle that you did. In your video, in the video of the Orthodox Sense, one of the great lines I saw there was when a rabbi introduced you to his community, and he said that I can't give you any advice about fighting, but he said, if you ever choose to go to the level of heavyweight, I can give you some advice on how to get to heavyweight. But either way, I can't give any advice on fighting. However, the idea of this battle in the ring is certainly something which is true in Judaism, specifically according to the teachings of the Tanya. In the Tanya, chapter 9, the Alter Rebbe, the author of the Tanya, Shneur Zalman, he shares the metaphor of life and the personal battle as a battle between two people he talks about two kings who are fighting over a country. Each one wants to be in control of that country. And he says that is the case in every person's life, that within each and every one of us, there is this battle going on between a godly soul and an animal soul, and each one wants to control us. It wants to control us entirely. Each one is no one's happy with a draw. Everyone wants to be in control. So the godly soul wants to control our 3 intellectual our capacities and our 7 emotional capacities, and the animal soul wants to be in control. And the goal in life is to battle so that the godly soul is in control over both our intellectual and emotional qualities. So much so that this is the meaning of when we say in the Shema every day, love God. We say b'chal levavecha, which literally means with all of your hearts, plural. We're saying that the love of God should permeate the godly soul and the animal soul, both. And that is the symbol of the animal soul's victory, the godly soul's victory in life. So that is the Hasidic idea of this battle. We're all we're in a boxing ring every day. Our body, our intellect, and emotion is on the line. And the godly soul should win out. So with that, let's go turn it over to the video. We'll show a couple videos of your battles in the ring, and then I'll turn it over to you, Dimitry, to share some perspective. So now for the next video, please.
Speak for itself. So, if you like boxing, just watch the kid in the blue trunks and see what you think about his potential. Boom. Body shots from Salita. Thrown with power. Good uppercut, perfect arc, short, tight.
All of his punches are short, and he keeps good balance at all times. Good body position.
First knockdown. So we got to see 1 minute and 25 seconds of Dimitry Salita, and Ron Gladden will go back to Kentucky with a bloody nose.
Very impressive.
Well, if you saw these two guys at a convenience store, you had to pick out the fighter. There's no question that Rocky Martinez looks to be in that profession. Dmitry Salita looks like a college student. Right hand may have hurt Salita, wisely holding on.
All right, now full disclosure, I don't watch boxing, so I don't know much. But one thing I did pick up is that apparently some battles can end quickly, and some perhaps are lengthy battles, which, so to say, go the distance. And I guess that's true in life too. In Judaism, the different battles we face in life, some are easier than others. Some are perhaps lifelong battles. But what are your perspectives and thoughts from fighting in the ring?
First of all, you picked the perfect two videos for what I'm about to say. One of the things that I want to say that you just showed the video, one of the people that is constantly in the videos, Israel Lieber, who's Rabbi Zalman's Lieber's brother, and he's been a very close person to me, and also a mentor and an advisor, someone that really knows boxing really extremely well, and obviously also was a shliach, certainly to me and to many others in the boxing environment that we were in. So, Israel, if you're watching, sending you my love. But the interesting thing here is that when you first turn pro, as an amateur, as an elite amateur, you fight world champions and guys that are going to be future top contenders. So you fight a very high level of competition. And when you turn pro, you sign with a promoter, and it's the promoter's job to kind of progressively move you up the ranks. And in the beginning, if you take yourself seriously and if you do what you're supposed to do, the guys that you fight early on are not as difficult as you were used to fighting. So you usually, dispose of them rather quickly. But then, if you get lazy, and this happens all the time, in boxing, the upsets happen at some point all the time. You fight a guy and you hit him, and the other four guys fell down, and this guy doesn't fall down. Not only does he not fall down, you hit him and your hand swells up. You can't hit him anymore, and he hits you back, and your eyes swell up, and you get cut, and it's round 3, and you get tired, and it's round 5, and you've never been to round 5 before, and the guy keeps going forward, and he headbutts you, and the referee doesn't see it, and he shoulders you, and now you get a little twisted, Muhammad Ali used to say, you're a real fighter when the room turns dark, and the monkeys start dancing, and the penguins start singing, and you come out of that room, then you know that you're a fighter. So certainly in the last fight that you've shown with Rocky Martinez, that was, I've experienced some of those things because my hands swell up, and I hit him hard, and he hit me hard back, and I did it again, and he did it again as well. So that really tests you and puts you in a very uncomfortable space, and you doubt yourself, like, who needs this, But you gotta have something inside your belly, something inside of you to make you go through that pain, to push you to win, something that goes beyond skill and beyond endurance. And it has to be a will. There has to be a will that will has to be developed, and the will is developed through training, through some experiences that you had. But when the going gets tough, you got to turn to that will, and you gotta understand that victory, although you have to face some uncomfortable moments, but you're going to enjoy that victory and be with that victory for the rest of your life. And if you give in, if you give in, you're going to give in and you're going to lose. I remember that in between fights, one of the trainers that used to help train me with Jimmy, he would call me at like 7 o'clock in the morning, say, Dimitry, come to the park, you're running. I said, man, my fight is in 3 months, tomorrow. I said, no, tomorrow never comes. And that was a great saying that he used to have, tomorrow never comes. You can never delay it because tomorrow never comes. And if you delay stuff till tomorrow, then you find a guy like this that hits you back and that your hands swell up and he's going to break you, So certainly a lot of great examples for boxing, through boxing. And boxing is really a romantic sport, actually the oldest sport around. Interestingly enough, at a big fight, you have CEOs and lawyers and doctors and businessmen, and everybody wants to be the closest they can be to witness two folks trying to beat each other up. But at that level, it's really chess. Sometimes people say that people have all kinds of stereotypes about boxers. But at the highest level, fighters are smart and creative and flexible, and you have to use lots of different wits to be able to, besides willpower, to be able to compete at that level. And obviously sometimes certain people, and I guess this kind of goes to different aspects of life. Sometimes certain people don't have the opportunities of schooling, of different things, so they use boxing as a way out. So I guess in some point in my life I felt that boxing was my way out, and I used it through such. And I certainly, throughout my career, I grew up in Sarah City Boxing Club. We had no heat in the winter and no air conditioning in the summertime. There used to be these water jugs that we all used to, in between rounds, that we all used to share. And nobody got corona many years ago. But and about 8 years ago, the gym got closed down because New York couldn't stand a place like this. But I guess it takes that type of training, and it takes that type to be in that kind of environment and to be okay with it, and to know that you're doing this for a better tomorrow, for victory, and when the going gets tough, you got to get going.
There's literally every single word you said can be applied to the battle in life, to what we said, the Tanya chapter 9, the idea to be able to have the fire within you to withstand the discomfort, to not only use strength, but to use wisdom. A person has to use wisdom to overcome the animal soul, the Yetzer Hara. I mean, literally word for word, those lessons apply in our spiritual battles in life. We only have a couple minutes. Let's conclude with this. I know you mentioned earlier on about the influence of the Lubavitcher Rebbe on you, and last week we commemorated the 26th yahrzeit of the Rebbe, and the influence of the Rebbe around the world continues and only gets stronger. You have a thought to conclude with about how the influence of the Lubavitcher in your life?
Not only do I have a thought to conclude, I want to bring something to you. So I walked in the Chabad house, and a lot of my education of Judaism happened through Rebbe Zalman's sermons, who was very, very well versed in Rebbe Sikhas, and who projected the love and the care of the Rebbe through himself, to me and to his congregants. And from the time that I wrote the first letter to the Rebbe, I felt more connected. And we live in a very physical and competitive world, and sometimes people just people discount religiosity and spirituality and connection and God, and that really pisses me off, for lack of a better word. And I feel that the Rebbe, through love and through understanding and through inclusion of people from all different walks of life, really inspired generations and brought back, my family. Judaism got, kind of destroyed by communism and by World War II and by the Holocaust. And, I'm one example. I have kids now that are, go to yeshiva. So it's 100% because of the Rebbe, and I have friends who are my best friends who are influenced through this. And I want to tell you something that happened a couple of weeks ago. I have a friend of mine, another person who I'm close with, and I'm going through a challenge in my life, and I called this person, and this person happened to be at the O, and they knew what I was talking about. They knew about my challenge. Said, "I'm at the O. Say what you want to say." And this person put the phone to the O, and I said what I had to say. One of the things I said is, "Rebbe, please show me a sign that you're with me." And I was in my house going through some stuff, and I was going through a drawer that I haven't been through in 5 years. And I take out an envelope because I was looking for something and I take out and I see there's a Rebbe's dollar. Not only is there a Rebbe's dollar, there's also an envelope, the Rebbe's envelope. And here I framed it, and this is it. And then I called the person that sent it to me, and I generally told him the story. I said, well, and what a coincidence that I got, because I asked him how he got this dollar and how he got the envelope. I said, what a coincidence. And he said, my friend, there's no such things as coincidences. And, it's this happened a couple of weeks before Gimel Tammuz. And a very special sign for me personally, and I feel very blessed to be able to have experienced it.
Beautiful.
And I want to say that I'm want to use this opportunity to give gratitude to Rabbi Zalman Lieberov, because I became religious and became observant and became inspired for Judaism in an emotional way through him, and so I'm always grateful. And I'm grateful to you, because I moved here, and you are a real chassid, and you project the Rebbe's love and understanding, and I'm very grateful to you and to the community that has welcomed me with open arms. So thank you, Shneur.
Thank you, Dimitry. I appreciate it, and the love is certainly mutual. But the messages you share, that final message, the influence of the Rebbe in your life. Just to conclude, that obviously, as a world, we are in a battle, and the victory in that battle is going to be with the coming of Mashiach. That's something we're all fighting for. And although it's gone on probably far too many rounds, we were hoping that this would be over a long time ago. But God willing, we should conclude this battle and bring the world redemption and Mashiach and peace and health and goodness. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you also for to the Jewish Learning Institute and Yosef for tending to all the technicalities over here with the video presentation and everything. Thank you. Have a good night, everyone. And God bless you all. And have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you.